Welcome back to the Autoblog Podcast. I'm Greg Migliore. We've got a great show for you this week. It's been a busy time in the car world. And with that, I'd like to welcome in a special guest co-host this week. That's Pras Subramanian from Yahoo Finance. He is the auto reporter for our friends over at Yahoo Finance. What's going on, man?
Hey, Greg, how you doing, man? Busy week here. Busy summer here, actually, surprisingly enough, with all the auto news going on. So ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I like to enjoy summer. You know, this is a little too hard. You know, can we take it easy here, car people? You know, maybe push this to September. But
yeah, I want to get some barbecues in, like just relax a little bit. But
how am I supposed to play 18 holes? I can only get 9 holes in. So, so it goes. But lots of big news this week. Quick overview here. We're going to try to hit as much of this as we can. Escalade IQ. This is the all-electric Cadillac Escalade. Lucid price cuts. Rivian earnings. They won't cut prices. That's kind of interesting. And then I wrote a piece this week on what could be next for the Chevy Camaro. Pras and I have both been driving the BMW XM. We'll talk about the BMW i7 and the Chevy Trax and the Mercedes EQE SUV. Or we'll try to get to as much of that, as we possibly can. So the Escalade IQ, they went a little different here. With some of their other, electric vehicles, they've been fairly mainstream. It's a bit of a different riff on the Escalade, let's put it that way. I guess they kind of telegraphed this, though. When you look at like the electric Silverado, that looks significantly different. So immediately right off the top, I thought, hey, the design is, I wouldn't say wild, but it's a departure here.
Yeah, Greg, I also was a little, I was, even though we knew that Cadillac was taking this different design language with the electric vehicles that they do, and the Celestiq and Lyriq, I was still a little surprised when I saw the Escalade here, because it's, it's still big, but it had kind of like a shorter kind of roof line that I was expecting. But I guess it's all for aero and things like that. And they had their D pillar that they use now with that flying sort of wing. I don't know what we're going to call it, but we saw that yesterday in New York. Actually, it looked very, very nice. I thought it was in terms of Escalade, can be a little too big sometimes. This car looked, I think, the right part, and inside was just as big as we expect in these Escalades. A lot of cool tech, that full dashed OLED screen across the whole panel there. It's a nice touch, and we'll see about how it drives. Right, 750 horsepower, dual motor, 200 kilowatt hour battery, insane size. This thing probably weighs like 9,000 pounds, man. That's what I'm thinking. But really nice car there. And I spoke to Mark Royster real quick, GM president, talking about how he said, we know the demand is there for a luxury, ultra luxury SUV. We know it. We're going to sell these things. He also told me that the ramp would be better than the Lyriq because they'll have more batteries online, one of those like factories in Spring Hill going. So he seems to think that they'll roll these out quicker than the Lyriq.
I think they kind of have to. Last year with the Lyriq, they made a relatively small number of them. I forget exactly what the precise figure was, but it was shockingly low considering it was nominally on sale last year. I see a lot of Lyriq styling cues of this as the side, but I think this is even more important than the Lyriq. Because this is,
I agree. Yes.
It's a flagship, right?
It's the biggest, it's probably the most important franchise that Cadillac has, is what way I put it, right? Escalade, people love it, very loyal user base. Everyone knows about it. Blackwings are great, but not everyone really knows much about them. But the Escalade, yes, 100%. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So it's, again, they go to the usual sort of electric and sort of recent years Cadillac playbooks. Tons of screens in this thing, as you mentioned. Interior, I just looked at the pictures. You actually saw it, right, in person?
Yeah, they had a reveal here in New York. Yeah,
cool.
So I went to that yesterday morning. Whole song and dance with they play all the loud music and it was pretty dramatic.
Yeah,
I get it. It's a big deal for them.
Cool. Yeah, we did the backgrounder thing, song and dance, if you will, in Michigan, where no civilians, no crowd, just you get to look at it. So it's our guy was impressed with it. So I can't wait to see it. Can't wait to drive it.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right about this. I want to mention again is they're making a concerted effort to make the EVs look slightly or even dramatically different than the normal cars. Whereas you've seen competitors like BMW just say, hey, no, the i7 and the 7 Series are the same. It's the exact same shell, but the insides are different. I wonder what customers and consumers are more into. I can see it going both ways, really, because I think Cadillac's doing a good job, or GM's doing a good job of distinguishing the EVs and not in a weird. Remember the original Volt and the first generation Bolt was so weird looking. I think now they're kind of learning their lesson.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up Mark Royce. I interviewed him once at the New York Auto Show, and he mentioned something like that. He's like, it was kind of like a science experiment, the first one. But the second one, consumers basically were more willing to go with like an electric Chevy Cruze, which essentially is what it was. So this is definitely more of a, it's a departure. And it's, to your point, you've got BMW does it one way, then you've got Mercedes, which their electric vehicles look drastically different. Ford, on the other hand, the Lightning, it's the headlights. That to me, and the Lightning badge. And that's about all you can tell as far as that it's electric. So two different approaches here.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Cool. So let's move on. We'll stay in the electric game here. Talk about some of the Lucid price cuts. This is news came out earlier in August here. Some of the vehicles are going to drop $12,000. I think it's the interesting play here. I think is I've always kind of thought Lucids were maybe overpriced isn't the right word, but for a brand that didn't exist as of a few years ago, like they came in hot. Now I drove a version of the Air. This is about 2 years ago now. Beautiful car. One of the best cars I drove of, I guess that was 2021. Totally taken by that like mid-century modern. I thought it was like, boy, Cadillac, you guys should do this. This is great. Same with Lincoln, et cetera. But yeah, man, they're charging some money for them. And I think this is kind of a smart move. We'll see. Or do you think it's desperation?
Yeah, I mean, so they did this on the same day they had earnings, right? And when they had earnings, they said that yes, we're cutting the price. We're able to unlock some efficiencies in our bill of sale and factory and things like that. So they're able to kind of claw back some of these gains. But yeah, they're losing a lot of money still per car. I agree. The Lucid Air is amazing. I drove it last year. Did a quick little review of it. And I couldn't believe how smooth it was and how nice. You have that mid-century modern vibe inside. They're very nice. But the car is fast and smooth and really amazing powertrain technology. So they got a lot going on for themselves. The question is, can they make these cars more efficient? The one big thing they have is they have this unlimited war chest of Saudi Arabian money. They're not. People are like they're going to go bankrupt. But they'll never go bankrupt. 60% owner is a country that has they can print money left and right. So I don't think it's a problem. At some point, when the Saudis say, you know what, we don't want to keep pumping money into this, but they're starting to deliver cars there now. They're going to open a factory there too. The Gravity, they said, is online for, I think, a debut next year, I think. So I think that they just got to kind of weather this. I mean, they have enough money, I think, on hand, like $6.5 million to go through, I think, 25. So they're okay for a little bit. But I think, Greg, you hinted on it, and I think you might be right. There is a demand possible issue there because you're not cutting prices because you want to. It's because you're trying to gin up some sales. And I think they're, especially in the higher end, the Air Touring, the Grand Touring versions, they're $12,000 is not, I mean, that's eating direct profits, right? I mean, they might have a problem there with demand.
Yeah, it's interesting too. Like if you look at how Tesla, when they launched the Model S and then the Model 3 a few years ago, more than a few years ago, there was a bit of a vacuum, right? So it was like, they didn't have it all to themselves, but there were not a lot of competitors there. Lucid is like, hey, they're one of many competitors. They're one of many electric startups. They don't have a lot of, cachet with their brand yet. It's a good name, I think, but somebody asked me what I thought of the Lucid. I was shocked that they knew what it was, So I think, even Fisker probably has more industry cred right now, mainly because they've been around and then they went bankrupt, 10, 12 years ago. But yeah, I think there's an awareness thing too with them. I don't know how a startup EV maker effectively reaches the masses. And with some of their cars, they're trying to do that, the lower end, but then you get up well into six figures and you're talking Mercedes territory.
I will say one thing is that, when they announced that deal with Aston Martin to license the technology, battery technology software, and they got a nice upfront payment, they got some stock, Aston Martin stock as part of the deal. That would be a huge way to unlock some of that easy sort of high margin business for them, software and including the technology. So maybe they can start doing more of those deals and then they can kind of subsidize the car business because they have good tech, and it would be sad to see that tech go away. It won't ever. It'll probably be, if the worst comes to worst, it'll be sold to somebody. But it's good stuff that they're doing, and it's American, right, based in California. So it's good stuff. I just think that they might need to get that gravity out sooner rather than later. I mean, people want that nice SUV. Like we said, the Escalade EQ is going to be out next year.
Yeah.
So that's a tough market already. It's starting to become a tough market, at least.
Yeah. I mean, you look at what a brand like Polestar has been able to do, where they've been kind of do a slow roll. Like nobody really knows what Polestar is, but when you see them on the road, people drive them, people ask me about them. Like, yeah, man, the Polestar 2 might be the right car for you. It's a really nice product. And they were able to take their time because they've got Volvo and Geely backing them up. Somewhat same case here with Lucid, but they also like are part of an established automaking empire and industrial conglomerate for that matter as well. So it seems like if you look at, just slightly, one step afield here, you see what like another level of security can do for you. So we'll see.
Yeah, I know we're going to talk about this maybe even right now, but with Rivian, we're talking about the companies like Lucid and Rivian that are doing it all on their own, right? Their own factories, soup to nuts, from ground up, building everything. Whereas the Fiskars and even the Polestars world are kind of an asset light business, not to get too in the weeds here, but they have their partners that can use our factory and they can build it, just give us a cut. And that makes it so much easier from a financial risk point of view. They're not outlaying billions and billions of dollars every year, capital costs going out the door. This is the risk. It's a big risk that Lucid and Rivian are taking, but then the payoff is like, look at Tesla. They did that, and they were able to get on the other side. They had losses for many, many years. Everyone talking about, Rivian and Lucid losing so much money every year. It's like, well, Tesla did that for years too. But they turned that corner. So the big question is, can they do that? And once you do that, you can unlock a lot more profits than potentially a Fisker or a Polestar. Polestar will be fine. I mean, they're all part of a big company, Geely and Volvo, so they're fine,
Yeah, it's funny when I can literally kind of remember, I think I was almost doing a podcast when like Tesla turned the corner, if you will. I maybe even did like a Yahoo Finance hit, and it was like hey, they've made money 2 quarters in a row, and it's like, hey, this is kind of the thing. And then it's like 3, and you start stacking those up. Then they have a bad one, and you're like, okay, that's the clunker, and you move on. So
I mean, even a break-even quarter, you're like, holy cow, like this is amazing. It's like you didn't lose money this quarter. I mean, that's a win for these guys.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, Rivian's another interesting one, as we go through the list of companies like, Lucid's over here, you've got Rivian, Lordstown isn't going to make it clearly. Fisker, I mean, the list goes on. Bollinger essentially went from iconic off-road designs to like commercial vehicles, which is a pretty big pivot. So all these guys are doing different things to like stay in business, keep their balance sheets somewhat reasonable until they could maybe turn the corner. And I mean, literally, if you look at it, like one company has turned the corner, Tesla. Like nobody else has actually pulled that feat off, which I think when you think about it is kind of gobsmacking, right? Like because the field's so large.
Not only that, I mean, they've had many opportunities to go belly up, 08, 09 in particular, things like that. So it's been kind of a strange run for Elon and him. And they've raised money here and there. They take a lot of government money in the past. So it's a miracle that they're where they are right now and they're doing so well. We talk about Rivian too, and we mentioned that they had earnings and of course, they're better than Wall Street expected, but still losing money. and then RJ talking about scaring someone not going to cut prices. And I think he's sort of right because they're selling these cars at higher prices. They've gotten kind of through all those early pre-order prices where they were getting just killed on a margin basis. And now they're selling more of these cars that are, I think, $30,000 more per car they're getting per car. So that's a nice way to eat into some of those costs. So I think they're maybe turning the corner. They still have some demand there. They're not cheap, but maybe they still see they have enough buyers that want these trucks, and they're actually making more of the SUVs now that they can charge more for actually.
Yeah, I think that's interesting too. That for one thing, Rivian, their vehicles are cheaper than like the very top end of say a Lucid, so they are a little bit more of like a Jeep, Ford Bronco, Tesla fighter, depending on what segments you're comparing them to. I think they've got a really like wide path to make it because they're making a truck, they're making an SUV. And what sells great right now, trucks and SUVs, especially SUVs with like an off-road kind of outdoorsy, rugged 4x4 theme. The products I think are pretty good. Have you driven either or both of them?
I drove the R1S and I thought it was incredible. It was the quad motor one. Took it upstate. The thing was like driving like a Ferrari, when you're on the road. And then we go off road, go on some loose gravel and some grit, sand, and it's like nothing changed. It's just like floating over the top of it. So it's so impressive. And they're talking about on the call or the earnings call, talking about how they themselves are also unlocking better. The bill of sales coming down. They're getting more efficiencies. The Enduro dual motor systems coming online. So they seem to be in a pretty good spot, and they think that they can sort of transition in a way that they can start. They said they're going to be. I think they're going to be. They said something like some measure margin. They said they're going to be profitable by, I think, next quarter or next at the end of this year. Some sort of profit margin. I can't remember the exact metric, but they're on the right path. And I'm like you, Greg. I'm like thinking to myself, if they cut prices a little bit, they can nuclear launch even more sales. I mean, right? I mean, you do that and get it underneath that IRA EV tax credit. Watch out.
They're a lot closer to the tax credit than, say, Lucid is. They could make like a base model, call it like, I don't know, you get your marketing guys on it, call it like the base off-road thing, and like Ford does that with the Bronco. And it's like, Jeep has done it for years with the Wrangler. They give it a fancy name, but the code word is you don't really get anything on it. It's like a stick shift and, plastic everything. But yeah, I mean, I think you could steer into that kind of off-road, slightly more capable, thing. And who knows?
R1T Sport, like just a stripped down, like $79K. So it's right below.
I think that's a business plan right now. I'm surprised I haven't thought of it maybe.
Yeah.
But I like the Rivian. I've driven the truck and the SUV. Really impressed with both of them. They had some quirks, I thought, like some of the things about like the steering wheel mounted controls that I forget what they did, whether it was like the HVAC or the infotainment. I was like, this is just, you guys are overthinking it. You don't really need to do it this way. It's a little weird, but really cool products. Like the design is awesome. Interior was nice. Really cool, I thought.
Like the flashlight built into the side of the door, the removable speaker in the middle of the console you can take out as a camp speaker. I mean, and in the gear tunnel, I mean.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. It's like this thing, what more do you need? Like as a daily, you have that and like a nice, cool classic car as your weekend car. You're set, man, It's not cheap, but you're set.
I mean, like you, I was very impressed with the suspension too on both of them. It was like, depending on where you wanted to be, you were like floating. That was, I almost hesitate to say it, but it was as good as any air suspension I've tested. It really was that good.
Yeah, I mean, it's so impressive, right? I mean, just like thinking about, people, we know about it, but it's like how much software, how much programming, how much tuning went into like for a first time car maker to make it that good is unbelievable to me. I can't believe it. Yeah. Credit to RJ and the team. I mean, they made an amazing car. The question is, can they make it and make a profit?
Yeah. No, that's going to be a very, in some ways, I think they're one of the, biggest potential stories of the 20s, such as they are. They could be the Tesla of the 2020s.
Totally.
We'll see. Let's talk almost slightly retro, but maybe back to the future here. That's the Camaro. They're going to run it out after this model year. I believe the final orders are like now. So if you want one, go get one. And every now and then I like either have a little bit of coffee or a little bit of something stronger. And when it's time to like bash out a column, I like to kind of look into the future. So that's what I did here. And to me, this is kind of like just a riff here. If you're on Autoblog, if you're on your deck, your patio this weekend, and you want to go back and read the Camaro story, this is my column from earlier in August. But, I argue, hey, what you want to do with it is bring it back. We've seen rumors that they might use the Camaro name on a sedan. I say don't do that. Not because of any like sacrilegious, like, Camaro can't do that. Hell, Ferrari can make a four-door, whatever. My point is Chevy, you got plenty of other names. You don't need to use Camaro on a sedan. So keep it what it is. Make it all electric. Ford's talking about running out the Mustang with the V8 as long as the federal government will let them. So is Porsche. So you've got some daylight here. Make something that's like slightly retro, but maybe still futuristic. And they've done it before. That Camaro concept and even the Chevy Volt concept, you might remember that, the original one. That thing looked good, the original one. Do that, call it a Camaro. I argue this is probably my age showing, but bring out like a 1980s theme. I think a lot of people who are like starting to like come into money and make decisions and run the world, that's the Camaro they remember. You don't want to go back to 1967. That's too long ago. And the 90s Camaro was the 90s Camaro. So this is my argument. I don't know what Chevy's going to do. I have no idea. Next time I, corner a Chevy executive, it'll be on my list of things, my punch card. But I mean, I don't know. Do you have any Camaro thoughts, Pras?
I do, and I actually I read your article, and I think it's great to the point. Like, this is what you should do. Here's your game plan, right? Like you said, it's time to go electric. You already have the Corvette out there, right? So maybe it's time to take the Camaro to the next level. And there's not that many. I can't really think of any coupes that are electric that are out right now, right? I mean, there's just maybe down the line we'll see them like the Charger and things like that, but we don't have them right now. So why not take that name that has so much cachet and bring it to the future? And I love that call. I mean, look, I'm a Camaro fan of the existing Camaro right now, right? It didn't sell well. The minute they say they're going to get rid of it, sales are actually going through the roof right now.
Sales are really good right now.
Yeah, and that thing sounds good, right? That V8 sounds good, and the SS and the 2SS and the LT. I mean, the ZR1 is unbelievable. Sorry, ZL1. The ZL1 is just like that. That Blackwing similar engine, amazing. So I like that Camaro. I know it's going out, and maybe that last year model is a good thing to invest in potentially. But for the future, that retro look, that 90s Camaro. I mean, the 80s, 90s Camaro is the one that I remember as a kid, and I think I liked it back then. So imagine that, because it has that sort of Tron-like 80s future retro look. You bring that back, and you put in that Ultium powertrain. I mean, slap on the IROC sticker.
All
it's a lot of fun. And the sedan thing, no, don't, please don't. Let's talk about that sedan Corvette, electric Corvette. I'm like, oh God, don't do that either.
Yeah, I agree with you on the Corvette thing too. I think it's interesting. I read I think it was a Morgan Stanley study where they talked about how much value you could unlock with Corvette is its sub brand. I think that's where you start to put things in spreadsheets that may or may not work in real life. I don't know. I mean, a Corvette sub brand, who knows? Maybe. I guess you got to fill it out with something. But that would be, I mean, if you're going to do that, I think you got to list Corvette, do an IPO, see what you could really do. Don't just start making Corvette hatchbacks and sedans, So,
I will say this, but with Ford and the Mustang Mach-E, and that a lot of people, when I drove that thing, they're like, this thing ain't a Mustang. I got that a lot. But at least Ford saying, we'll make the Mach-E, but we're going to stick with the original Mustang. You can still buy that, and it's going to be gas powered as long as they can. So maybe that's a way to we'll allow this. But if you went just Corvette all electric and it's a Corvette sedan, I think you're gonna have mutiny on your hands with a lot of old boomers. Indeed.
So we'll see. I mean, we have a couple auto shows coming up. Maybe might be a good time to roll out make some news. LA sounds like it might be a decent show. There's one in Munich, and of course Detroit Auto Show, where allegedly there's going to be 6 new reveals according to the press release. So we'll see.
I guess I want to put on your article, Greg. Love the key art there. That's the Camaro that I sort of remember as a kid, and it's like, it's like the Tron. The whole thing is Tron. I love it. I'm looking at it right now. It's super cool.
Sometimes when I write different opinion pieces and columns, I did this on the Fox Body Mustang last year. It's I find the art first, and then, like I said, open something cold and see where the words take you. And you're just for Autoblog, obviously, hey, our readers like to look at the Camaro of all different generations. It's, just have some fun with it, and we'll see. So we will see. Like I said, I think this is a missed opportunity if they don't do something in the next year or two. So
hands down, I totally agree.
So let's talk about what we've been driving, what's been in our fleets here. You were in the XM. I am really interested to hear what you think. I read your piece. I was somewhat your opinion kind of synthesized where all of my thoughts about that car was. My head almost exploded. There was so much going on with it. So, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago on the cast, but what do you think? What do you think of this thing?
So when I did this review, I kind of it was weird. I kind of I sort of drove and just started talking to myself and recorded a bunch of these notes and then sort of synthesized later because I was sort of
that's fun.
Trying to figure out what I thought of this car, because when it came out, and hopefully I don't go drone on too long here on this, but when it came out, it took a lot of heat, right? A lot of car BMW fanatics were like, "What the hell is this thing? It's an SUV by the M, the much the hallowed grounds of the M division." And they come out with this thing. A lot of my BMW friends were sort of like thought it was sort of like a sacrilege. I thought to myself, it looks interesting. It's definitely weird. I don't know what to think about. I'll give it a shot. I'll take a look at it in real life. So it arrives. I take a look at it. And I cannot believe how big this thing is. I'm not sure if you saw it, Greg, but it is just like enormous. It's a two row. It's a strictly 2-row SUV. A lot of room inside, and so the outside, some angles look okay, some don't. For the most part, it wasn't really my thing. I dig some of the angular kind of look of it, but I'm just not a big SUV guy, and especially one in like performance trim. So that to me was problematic. Inside, much better experience. Great materials, great seats. Bringing up his iDrive is great. It just does everything you need it to do, and it's got the nice presentation. It's no, AMG or Mercedes, whatever they call them, the new one that they have going on, MBX Entertainment or whatever you call them, MBUX.
Yeah.
But it's fine. Inside was fine, lovely, had a good time with that. But driving it, you can tell. I mean, this thing is just big and heavy, and it's got that battery pack for that 30 miles of range. And my understanding is BMW couldn't put air suspension in there because it was just too heavy. So you have this kind of a stiff. It is an adaptable but not air suspension type of setup, and I found it to be not that comfortable in the comfort mode. Did some driving in some windy roads and found it to be a bit heavy and not a little bit cumbersome. And it's got plenty of power and sounds good when that V8 kicks in and they got the nice exhaust. So it's kind of like this contradiction. Like I said, I noted it was that I don't know if you saw the video that came out when that car came out, was just show like influencers and hot couture people running around driving in the back and taking selfies. Maybe that's who the car's for, but I find it hard to see it as a performance vehicle, and no less one from the M division.
Yeah, I mean, M has made, as far as I know, 2 cars, the M1 and this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're talking about a pretty big different, it's a big departure, very different ethos. Let's put it that way. My thought was there was almost too much going on with it. Like, it seemed like he was trying to be everything. And I mean, just, side note, I did really enjoy driving it. It's fun. It's super powerful. I think 738 horsepower. It's huge. The interior is beautiful. It's a plug-in hybrid V8. There's not that many of those. I mean, so that was wild. It had a bit of electric, range. So, in some ways you got the best of all worlds. It starts at like 159 and then you easily go north of that. So, I mean, I was also struggling to think like, who is this vehicle for? Because if you want to spend this kind of money, cool, great, more power to you. But is this what you want? I mean, maybe, or do you want to just step straight up to like a Lamborghini Urus or something, or an Aston Martin DBX? You don't get the plug-in hybrid powertrain, but maybe you don't care because it's not that super like fuel sipping here. Design was all over the place to me. Like I was staring at it in my driveway. I'm like, I know wheel arches are like the thing right now. Holy cow, man. Like, I don't know. It was intense. Let me put it that way.
You're really kind of nailing it with the design was just cohesiveness is not, I don't know the right word because it wasn't.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
But
it wasn't.
You mentioned the hybrid part. First of all, you said who is it for, right? Is it on the face of it, people who wanted the biggest and baddest ass BMW SUV? Okay, fine. Yeah. But even those guys have choices, and they don't have to go on this route. Is it the influencer, the person they're talking about that wants to have like a design piece, like a Prada bag or whatever they were saying, a Louis Vuitton sort of personal item? Yeah. This is that. They're saying this is what that is. It's not so much a performance thing as it is a piece of art or design piece that is part of your life. I don't know. That's kind of a stretch for me. One thing I will say about real quick about the hybrid system, that 30 miles of range, the car was when I was driving, I was operating hybrid most of the time in electric mode. Yeah. I barely used any fuel unless I really wanted to fire it up and go fast. So that part was nice, but I mean, there's plenty of other hybrids that you can get for that money. But I think you're right, Greg. I mean, why not get a Cayenne Turbo GT, right? You're not that far off. And the DBX, excellent car. That's a nice design looking piece too. So
it's I don't know. This strikes me as this is going to be like maybe like a trivia question years down the road. Like, remember when they made the XM? Like, remember when Lamborghini made that crazy Lambo SUV thing in the early 80s? This is where I think this will likely be relegated to, but I don't know. I mean, the other thing too, sometimes we like sort of try to push OEMs to do stuff. Well, hell yeah, they went for it. Design, powertrain, interior, expensiveness, they went for it.
It's funny you mentioned. I think we had a Doug DeMuro on our show a few months ago, and he did a piece about how these weird, quirky cars, right? They unloved in their time, but then eventually they might get some appeal. They're just so different. They didn't make that many. Yeah, maybe 20 years down the line, this car is like something that people like, or 15 years even. They want to. It's intriguing because it's so odd. But right now, I don't know who's buying this thing.
I mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, this is a good segue over to the i7. You spent some time in that. Much more conventional appearing. It looks like a 7 Series. I actually drove one probably a month or 6 weeks ago, and it had the theater screen in it. That thing that folds down. Holy cow, that's a lot of screen. But yeah, I don't know. I've always kind of liked the 7 Series. I drove it on the track once at Monticello a while ago. This was an ICE car, obviously. And I've always thought they've done a good job of making a large flagship sedan actually pretty sporty. So what did you think of the i7?
This is my first time in the i7, the all-electric version of the 7 Series. And absolutely right. The 7 Series generally is like, of course, like a luxury tour, but then has the ability to go on a track like Monticello, which is that is a technical track, right? That's not like some, like a high speed kind of oval. So the i7, I found it to be, wow, this is like S-class levels of smoothness and refinement. Obviously it's quiet, but it was just like, we were sort of floating over the ground, over the city here, potholes, cracks. I found it to be, because it's like, is this an S-Class? I mean, I thought it was that refined. And I thought to myself, you're not buying the i7 for aggressive driving, or I know you can get a gas-powered version of the 7 Series too. And this car is just meant for cruising and being driven in the back. Like the car I had also had the theater screen in the back. And let me tell you, there's no car in the market that has that. I mean, I think it's impressive. You sit back there and the shades drop behind you. The screen comes down and it's like loads up Netflix and Hulu right away. I'm like, this is amazing. If I'm a kid,
faster than my TV at home.
Yeah.
Like, this is great.
Yeah. If I'm a kid, I'm loving life. If you're an adult back there and you have a driver, or you just friends are back there, you're going to kill 2 hours, no problem. And it's a deeply impressive car. I know the design has some of its critics because of the dual light, they in the front. I found it to be a pretty cool looking design, and it has an imposing 7 Series look to it. And it's kind of brought into the future. BMW's new design aesthetic, which we saw a little bit of in the XM. I think you see a little bit of that in this i7, but in more of a toned down way. And then also want to mention that the gas powered version of this car looks exactly the same. So interesting take there by BMW, but I'm impressed by the i7, and it's in that price range where you're in this class levels of refinement. Do you go there? Do you go with i7, or because the AMG, the EQS is a very different car.
That's true. That's it's a good transition. Why don't we move on over? I was in the EQE. We'll get to the Chevy Trax here in a minute, but EQE, I drove the 350, the 4MATIC. This is kind of a fun sentence to say. I thought it was a very good value at $91,000. You get a lot here.
I also Greg. I drove the EQE, the AMG EQE.
Oh, well then you won up, you win.
Well,
right?
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about a lot of money here, but I think it's the right size. I mean, I think. I thought it was probably the best looking the EQ series of cars that Mercedes has. I thought this EQE SUV in both trims, right, AMG and in the regular one, I think it's the right size. It's not super like teardroppy and kind of slopey in the front. It's got a nice little front that's not so slopey, slope-like. A nice footprint inside. Fantastic layout there. I think it's the perfect, not too huge of a dash. Perfect, nice size, good layout there. Of course, the MBUX system is wonderful. Good materials. I just thought the footprint was perfect. And as an electric car, had like 300-ish miles of range when I picked up the car. Did great.
Yeah, no, very similar. I think it's a proportional response. I feel like to like what people want and need. It's priced very competitively. Mine actually had a bunch of options. The sticker was actually 77.9 without destination, but I mean that's still like a $79,000 Mercedes electric SUV. I'd take that deal. Sounds pretty good.
Yeah, mine was around 110, so
Okay,
not
all right.
exactly
So
cheap there. I just want to double check something. 'Cause I know they make the EQS sedan and SUV in Alabama, and I wasn't sure if they were going to do that with the EQE. I'm not sure. Oh no, they are. They're making the EQ in Tuscaloosa. So interestingly enough, if they were to bring it down below 80,000. Which I believe it starts below 80,000, right?
yeah,
If you qualify for the income requirements, you can get that tax credit, or better yet, commercial lease credit. Doesn't matter for income; get it for any car.
yeah, no, that's right. That's right. I'm looking at the window sticker here, Vance, Alabama. So, yeah, apparently that's actually went to one of their factories. Total side note in Tuscaloosa for the launch of the last generation C-Class when Dr. Z, Dieter Zesche was
was
still
there.
running the show back then.
Oh,
It was
wow.
a pretty good press event, actually. It really was.
I heard, Greg. I heard you might know more about this than I do. I heard back when he was around, they used to do up the Detroit Auto Show big time. Because he was a big fan of after that merger. He was, I think, on
Yeah.
Detroit a lot. He loved Detroit, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Yeah, he was quite the character in sort of an understated way. I thought he did a really good job as the CEO of Chrysler. He really did. And then when he was CEO of like Daimler Chrysler, he ran the whole company like very well, very holistically. A lot of people, like industry people, still remember him, I would say, fondly because he did a good job here. You got to remember at the time, like, Ford was being run by like, who was that? Alex Trotman. Bill Ford took a turn at the helm. Jack Nasser. Like things were not going great, for the other crosstown people, if you will. Rick Wagner wasn't doing much for GM. So, I mean, Dieter Zesche did a good job, and he, they put out the Ram and the Jeep brand. Both were pretty strong. Yeah,
because he was a car guy. I mean, a lot of like people like Wagner were like finance, spreadsheet guys. Kind of the wrong guys you won't run any car company, I think. But Z really cared. Yeah, Dr. Z.
Yeah, Dr. Z. He retired. He did it right too. He retired when Mercedes was in a good position, kind of go out on top. I think that's the way to do that. Some of these, I think, car executives stay a little bit too long. Let's put it that way. So.
Enjoying life, the post retirement, yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
So, I mean, anyways, though, I did like the EQE. I thought it was only weird thing I could say is that a running board, which for a vehicle that's not that far off the ground, and I'm not even that tall of a guy.
You had a running board?
I kept it had a running board. I kept like one stepping it or short stepping it, trying to get out of it. I'm like, well, this is weird. I've been in like Rams and F-150s that are far higher off the ground, and you got to basically do a base jump. So that was kind of weird. But yeah, I mean, I like the styling. Interior was very solid. I think it's a good value. Plenty of electric range. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good product.
I think it's the right footprint too, right? I mean, because EQS, the third row is going to be just longer and bigger. This thing was like just all that you need, compact size. You got the batteries down low, amazing good power. It's really, what more do you need? I mean, money. You need some money, but
well, yeah,
that helps.
But no, I'd agree. It was the right size. So tell me about the Chevy Trax. This one is like, I saw one on the road the other day, and I couldn't believe how much better it looked than the outgoing Trax. But I haven't driven one yet, so I mean, I don't know if it goes much deeper than that. What did you think of the Trax?
So I just got out of it last weekend, and so real quick, we in the industry, right? I don't want to talk too much about this, but we have like the fleet operators that manage the fleets for the different automakers, for press and for other executives to use to test, or for when they have people in town. So the guy who manages the Chevy press fleet said, "Hey, you got to get in this Trax." I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "It's actually pretty impressive." Like he's the one who told me to do it, and I thought to myself, I knew it was a new car. I knew that interesting 3-cylinder, new design. You pick up the car, looks really, really good. I mean, they did it's got a wide stance. not too like a wide stance, not too big, but very aggressive looking for a car that the sticker price was 26 grand. That's what the options that I had. That had an RS. We had an RS version. So big wheels, nice looking interior. Interior is got everything you need. Not like a huge screen, decent seats. Got your CarPlay still. GM still has CarPlay in that car. And it was totally fine. Decent 3-cylinder, decent pep. Not too great when you're on higher speeds in the highway on a pass. But off the line, good pep. Not too bad sounding engine. Good space, plenty of space for rear seat. Actually, space. An adult could sit back there. I was pretty impressed, man. For that price, I couldn't believe that this car exists. Years ago, a $26,000 car was kind of not the best. Now, this is a car you could actually buy and live with. I'm very impressed with it.
I think, honestly, I got to give Chevy a lot of credit, it sounds like, for resurrecting what was really a bottom part of their lineup. Like the old Trax, that was a rough machine. That was not something you really necessarily wanted to drive if you could avoid it. They made it a genuinely attractive, crossover. I think it looks really good. Handles
well. With that nice, the way they sort of like the wider track, you'll notice that like it's got a premium look to it, and it's I had it in this rapid blue color that they have, like that light, like Monaco style Mexico blue. So it kind of had that sporty look to it. But I thought the car for the money is a great deal, and I think people who are out there looking for a new car and they want a decent price and they want something that's affordable. You're living in a great world if you can get that car, and you're going to be very happy with it, I think.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. This is a really good year, I think, for new vehicles. Frankly, it always is, but it seems like this year there's a lot of interesting things at a lot of different price points, and this is one that I'm really intrigued to drive. So
yeah, for sure. I as the fleet operator told me, I'm telling you, yeah, it's great, man. Check it out. Yeah, for sure.
All right, sounds good. Well, thanks for hanging out this week, Pras. That is all the time we have. If you enjoy the Autoblog Podcast, please give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get the show. Send us your Spend My Monies. That's podcast@autoblog.com. You can get it, we'll spend your money, or we'll get into the mailbag. Be safe out there, and we'll see you next week.